Hey, it's Medium Jenny Lee. I'm here with another discussion of the Raw Contact Volume 1. I have a visitor again today. Hey, Runa. I don't know how long she's going to stay, but she's real comfy. Are you so comfy? I don't know how I'm going to do this discussion with her on my lap. But I guess I'll try. Okay. All right, so we are on session 14, which is going to be video number 15. Moving right along. All right, so going back over this morning's work, second density strives toward third density, which is self-awareness. The striving takes place through higher density forms invested by third density beings. Could you explain what you mean by this? Much as you would put on a vestment, so do your third density beings invest. Oh, there she goes. Ah! Okay. She's escaped my grasp. It'll be much easier to read this without her on my lap, unfortunately. Okay. Okay, let's start this over again. Much as you would put on a vestment, so do your third density beings invest or clothe some second density beings with self-awareness. This is often done through the opportunity of what you call pets. Very interesting. So, because when we have a pet, we name it, talk to it. Oh, how interesting that I was holding Runa while we were getting ready to talk about this. We give them an identity and they recognize their own identity. Like when you call your pet, when you call their name, most of the time they'll look at you or come to you. They know that you're talking to them. So they become self-aware through our interaction with them. It has also been done by various means of others. It has also been done by various other means of investiture. These include many so-called religious practice complexes, which personify and send love to various natural second density beings and their group form. I'm not really sure what they're talking about there. Religious practices that personify second density beings in a group form. I'm sure if I thought hard enough, I could think of an example for that, but maybe you guys have an example of that. What is an example of this that they're talking about? You tell me. When this Earth was second density, how did the second density beings on Earth become so invested? Because of the spiraling light. It goes upward from density to density. The process takes longer when there is no investment made by incarnate third density beings. Spiraling light moving upward, but we have to take an investment in our own ascendance, shall we say. Then what was the second density form? What did it look like that became man, Earth man in the third density? In the case of your planetary sphere, the process was interrupted by those who incarnated here from Mars. They were adjusted by genetic changing, and some of the difference was very noticeable variety rather than a gradual raising of the bipedal forms upon your second density to third density. This had nothing to do with the placement of the soul. It had only to do with the circumstances of the influx of those from that culture. So this occurred around 75,000 years ago. So telling me only the points of development which occurred within the 75,000 years, any particular points or times where attempts were made to increase the development of this third density. Okay, so this really is beneficial to understanding the scientific realm of why there's no like clear evolution from ape to man. And I've heard this theory before, that aliens genetically modified the ape to create a race of men for whatever purpose. And I've heard lots of different theories. And if you look at it from from a religious or creation theory point of view, from any culture in the world, we were made from the place. You know? We were made from the earth. So either way, all of this makes sense. Because the sparks of energy, the souls of Mars, we're not going to be able to live on Mars anymore. They needed somewhere to incarnate so they can continue their growth from third density upward. And the only thing that was available on Earth was second density creatures. So the Confederation modified the ape to create a new form so that these Martian souls would have somewhere to go without having to revert. Makes sense to me. Okay, so Don's getting ready to find out, and us along with him, all the points of history from the time the Martian souls came to Earth, that there were clear points of an attempt to grow from third density to fourth density. Here we go. The first attempt was that 75,000 years ago when they put the Martian souls in what were then now human bodies. The next attempt was 85. Dyslexia, your dyslexia is showing 58,000. I'm not really dyslexic. I just sometimes mix my numbers up backwards. Like I just did. 58,000 of your years ago, those of Mu, or Lemuria, so continuing for a long period in your measurement with those of Mu, as you call this race. So the people of Lemuria were working towards the fourth density. The next attempt was 13,000 years ago. Look at the amount of time in between. That's crazy. When some intelligent information was offered to those of Atlantis, this was the healing and crystal working, of which they talked about previously. The next attempt was 11,000 years ago, that they talked about with Egypt, when they came to Egypt. The same beings which came with us returned approximately 3,500 years ago in order to attempt to aid the South American mind-body-spirit complexes once again. So if you remember, around the same time that Ra decided to come to Egypt, there was another social memory complex which has never been named, came to South America and was giving the indigenous peoples of South America aid and help and assistance and trying to teach them. And they decided to come back 3,500 years ago. However, the pyramids of those so-called cities were not used in the appropriate fashion, and therefore this was not pursued further. Which is what I was talking about before with like how the South American cultures skewed it and ended up thinking that they had to sacrifice people and stuff. So, yeah, humans, we really like to screw stuff up. There was a landing approximately 3,000 years ago in South America. There were a few attempts to aid people approximately 2,300 years ago in Egypt. The remaining part of the cycle, we have never gone from your fifth dimension and have been working in this last minor cycle to prepare the harvest. So after these final attempts, 2,300 years ago, they have never come back, or no, they've never left. Ra has never left the fifth dimension, but they have never come back to Earth in a way that we're aware of, that a way that they've never come to walk amongst us again, but they've never left us in a higher dimension. Was the Egyptian visit 11,000 years ago the only one you actually walked the earth? We of the vibratory sound complex Ra have walked among you only at that time. So the only time they actually walked among people of earth was in Egypt 11,000 years ago. I understood you say in the earlier session that the pyramids were built to ring the earth. There are 6 balancing pyramids and 52 others built for additional healing and initiatory work among your mind, body, spirit complex people. What's a balancing pyramid? Imagine, if you will, many force fields of Earth in their geometrically precise web. Energies stream into the Earth planes, as you would call them, from magnetically determined points. Science has pretty much figured this out, right? Due to the growing thought form distortions in the understanding of the law of one, the planet itself was seen to have the potential for imbalance. Due to the fact that humans couldn't think correctly, we're going to get some imbalance. The balancing pyramid structures were charged with crystals, which drew the appropriate balance from the energy forces streaming into the various geometric centers of electromagnetic energy which surround and shape the planetary sphere. So they're channeling the energy, the electromagnetic energy, down into the earth using crystals, pyramids, balancing pyramids at each one of these points. So all the visits from 75,000 years ago were to give the people of Earth an understanding of the law of one so that they could progress through the densities. Yes. Do the balancing pyramids cause the Earth from changing its axis? Not clear. Please restate. Do the balancing refer to the balancing of individuals initiating the pyramid, or the physical balancing of the Earth on its axis? The balancing pyramids were used for an individual initiation. However, the use of these pyramids was also designed for the balancing of the planetary energy web, which in the next session, the one I just read this morning, this will make a little bit more sense, because all the things have to be balanced together, the whole and the individual. So that's why part of me, I can't stop yawning this way. You know why I can't stop yawning? Because I haven't drank any coffee yet. Hold on, let me have a sip. Coffee. All right. The other pyramids are not placed properly for earth healing, but for healing of people. It came to our attention that your density was distorted towards a premature aging process. We were attempting to aid people to give them more time in one incarnation to have a fuller opportunity to learn and teach the law of one, which is love. So 2 kinds of pyramids: balancing pyramids that help balance the Earth's energy, and in the smaller pyramids were for individual healing, trying to help people have a longer life so that they could learn more in one incarnation, which in turn would speed up everybody's process, right? We screwed it up. But, you know, I wonder, I'm curious, why don't we look it up? Whenever I'm curious, we should just look stuff up. That's what Google's for. We live in the age when we can look up any information that we need to, whether it's correct or not. It's going to give us a better understanding. My curiosity right now is, what was the lifespan of, let's just say, Egyptians $11,000 years ago? What was the lifespan of Egyptians 11,000 years ago? People in Egypt did not grow very old. There was a very high infant death rate due to infections, resulted in an average age of death at 19 years. However, those who survived childhood had a life expectancy of 30 years for women and 34 years for men. Holy crap. So most people were going to die before they even reached the age of 20. But if you were lucky, you could expect to live to be 30 or 34. That's crazy. No wonder they were like, hey, we got to help these people out. Because what the hell can you learn in 19 years of life? Nothing. The human brain doesn't even finish developing all the way until your early 20s. And so, wow. I mean, just think, if our lifespan was 30 years, I would be dead like 10 years ago. Wow. Okay, let's look up the same, but for South America. South Americans, we'll just say, because there's so many different kinds. First high quality ancient DNA, 49 individuals from 11,000 years ago. So see, we just don't have enough information about people that lived in South America 11,000 years ago. In 2018, they have 49 bodies of people, or skeletons, or remains. So we just don't, we're not going to be able to know what their average lifespan is with only 49 different specimens to study. All right, let's get back to the book here. So yeah, they had a real short life, super short. How could you learn anything in that amount of time? Okay, so you're saying that it was to increase their lifespans, correct? The other pyramids helped people's lifespans increase. All right, George Van Tassel built a machine in our western desert called the Integratron that's supposed to increase people's lifespans. But I didn't bother looking up what that was because Ross said that it doesn't work. Who did George get his information from? And this is why it's not going to work. There were two contacts that contacted this George Van Tassel guy. One was from the Confederation, you know, what we're kind of thinking of as the good guys. And the second was from the you-know-who's, the Orion group. Thus, the Orion group used the instrument. However, this instrument, though confused, was a person devoted at heart to the service of others. So the worst that could be done was to discredit the source. Now this brings up an interesting point here. I had noticed this, and it's something that my dad's really into woo-woo stuff too, and so in the early, I would say the 90s through the early 2000s, there was like somebody would make like a UFO show, and the whole entire episode of the show would show all the evidence, the information, the contactees, the stories, the whatever, like the whole entire episode of whatever it was. And then right at the end, there would be some jerks that came on that were like, you know, supposed to be whoever, scientists or the authority or, you know, people who know stuff or whatever. And they would completely discredit the whole entire thing. And it's like, why are you going to make this whole show with all this information about something and then have some expert come on and say that none of it's true? And that's exactly what I feel like happened to this. Like, that's what this part made me think of. So this Van Tassel guy was given information by somebody from the Confederation to build some kind of machine that was going to let people live longer. But somebody from the Orion group came and screwed it up. And it ends up discrediting him. Like, sounds very familiar. Would there be any value to the people of this planet now to complete the machine? This is a very interesting part. The harvest is now. There is not at this time any reason toward longevity, but rather encourage people to seek the heart of self, as it resides clearly in the violet ray energy field, which is the crown, right? And will determine the harvesting of each person. So once again, this is kind of confusing, but it comes back up in the next session and will be explained a little bit more. But, pardon me, I keep coughing. Let me have another sip of coffee. But remember, at some previous session, I was wondering, because they said the Martian souls came to Earth 75,000 years ago. In 1981, it was 75,000 years ago. So wouldn't that make the harvest then? And I was right, because he said the harvest is now. They're harvesting people then. So to me, the harvest almost seemed like it would cause some sort of like global extinction thing, and like all the souls would be collected to be determined and sorted out. Like, that's what I kept envisioning in my head, and clearly that is not what that meant. I think it's just the people that are moving on at that time have the opportunity to move up if they are available, and willing. Remember, there's free will. So there could be entities that have completed their third density and are ready to move up to the fourth. And it's their determination whether they want to or not. But it sounds like you can only do the upward movement at one of these cycles, the 25,000 year cycles. And I'm still a little bit confused what the difference is between the 25,000 year cycle and the 75,000 year cycle. Because I thought I knew it, and now it doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know, what do you guys think? Or maybe it'll show up with some more information. Or maybe I need to go back and look at the information again, I don't know. Continuing on. Okay, going back to the start of the 75,000 year period, there was a harvesting 25,000 years after the start, which would make it 50,000 years ago. Can you tell me how many were harvested from our planet at that time? None. What about 25,000 years ago? Was there a harvest then? So if in 1981 it's the 75,000 year period, that means 50,000 years ago there was a harvest, and Ra says nobody moved up. So what happened 25,000 years ago? A harvesting began taking place in the later portion of the second cycle, with individuals finding the gateway to intelligent infinity. The harvest of that time, though extremely small, were those entities of extreme distortion towards service to the entities which now were to repeat the major cycle. These entities therefore remained in third density, although they could at any moment leave this density through use of intelligent infinity. So the harvest 25,000 years ago, the entities could have been harvested of the fourth dimensity, but decided to stay here in service of the planetary population. Correct. Thus there was no harvest, but there were harvestable entities who shall choose the manner of their entrance into the fourth density. So there it is. You can choose to move up, or you can choose to stay. And it sounds like there was a small portion of people who were able to move up, and they all decided that they were going to stay and help other people move up instead. And that also gets talked about in the next session a little bit more. And it's also making me real confused about myself, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Next. Then for the last 2,300 years, you've been actively working to increase the harvest. Can you state, with respect to the law of one, why you do this? I speak for the social memory complex termed Ra. We have come among you to aid you. Our efforts in service were perverted. Our desire then is to eliminate as far as possible the distortions caused by those misreading our information and guidance. So remember, they came to the Egyptians twice. The information got screwed up, so they've been trying to fix it ever since. And that's how they're aiding us, you know. The general cause of service, such as the Confederation offers, is that of the primal distortion of the law of one, which is service. There's been a lot of different primal distortions of the law of one. So that's also a little confusing, because I could have sworn light was, or love was, or something, but now this one's saying it's service. So I don't know. Maybe it's all the same thing. The one being of the creation is like unto a body, if you will accept this third density analogy. Would you ignore a pain in the leg, a bruise upon your skin, a cut which is festering? No. There is no ignoring a call. We, the entities of sorrow, choose as our service the attempt to heal the sorrow which we are calling analogous to the pains of a physical body complex distortion. So basically, there's that word again. Ra is saying that y'all are like a festering, infected cut, and it hurts so bad that we have to come and help you because y'all are hurting us. Good God Almighty, can we get it together? Can we get it together? What is the density level of Ra? We are a 6th density with a strong seeking toward the 7th. The harvest for us will be in approximately 1 to 1.5 million of your years. It is our desire to be ready for harvest as it approaches your time-space continuum. Wow, why is theirs so much longer? 2.5 million of your years. And also, if time doesn't exist on the other side, then why is there all this talk of time? What's that all about? I don't know. That part's real confusing to me. But basically, Ross said, there's basically again, basically, they really don't want to have to be stuck here anymore. So get your stuff together, guys, because we're going to move up. If humans even exist in 2.5 million years from now, good Lord Almighty. At the rate we're going. Anyway, are you ready yourselves for harvest through the best service you can provide? Correct. We offer the law of one, the solving of paradoxes, the balancing of love light and light love, which also in the next session is talked about more about what's the difference between these two. How long is one of your cycles? One of our cycles computes to, so now here is this is a time, an instance, where Ra says something, but then says something else that's different. So it says right here, when Ra first recites the digits of the number, they indicate that it's 750 million years, but then state the number is 75 million. So Dawn clarifies. Do you mean 75 million? Yes. So one of their cycles is 75 million years. Ours is 75,000 years. Theirs is 75 million years. That's crazy. In your service and giving the law of one, do you work with other planets other than Earth or just Earth? We only work with Earth. Thanks, Ra. We need it. You stated that you have been called by 352,000 Earth entities. Does this mean that this number is the number who will understand and accept the law of one? We cannot estimate the correctness of your statement, for those who call are not in every case able to understand the answer to their calling. Moreover, those who were not calling previously may with great trauma discover the answers to the call nearly simultaneously with their late call. There is no time, space, and call. Therefore, we cannot estimate the number of your mind-body-spirit complexes which will, in your time-space continuous distortion, hear and understand. So I think what Ra is saying here in a very confusing way is that they don't really know how many people are going to call, because some people call immediately after they've had some sort of great trauma. So the number's always fluctuating, and then you never know who's actually going to understand and follow the advice that they give, or they wouldn't call it advice. The teach learning information that they give, you know. So people call, they try to help. Who knows if the person's gonna figure it out or not, because they have to figure it out on their own because of the free will, law of free will. How do you perform your normal service? We have used channels such as this one, but in most cases the channels feel inspired by dreams and visions without being aware consciously of our identity or existence. That is fascinating. So people, Dreams and visions. Dreams and visions. Don't discredit your dreams when you feel like they've inspired you to do something or be something or think something. Please don't. Please don't think that they're just dreams. There's so much more to dreams than science is willing to admit. So don't. Don't discredit your own dreams and visions. When you contact the entities in their dreams and otherwise, these entities, I assume, have to be first seeking in the direction of the law of one. Is that correct? Yes. I had a small child sitting on my lap. That's why my squiggle got real crazy. For example, the entities of the nation of Egypt were in a state of pantheism, as you may call a distortion towards separate worship of various portions of the Creator. We were able to contact those whose orientation was toward the One. So, of course, we know that the people of Egypt in that time worshipped many gods, but there were some that were leaning toward thinking that it was all one, and those were the ones that were able to be contacted by Ra. The trauma, I assume this will, as the cycle ends, have some inconvenience. There will be some entities who start seeking, but because of trauma, there will be some entities who start seeking and into seeking because of trauma, and will then hear your words through telepathy or written material such as this book. You are correct, except in understanding that the inconveniences have begun. So I'm not really sure what that means because part of Dawn's question wasn't there. Can you tell me who was responsible for transmitting the book? You guys know I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. What is that? OAHSPE. You guys can pronounce that on your own. I looked up what this was, and it's called This, a New Bible. It was written in 1882 by John Newbrow. I don't know. It's automatic writing, and it was an attempt to unite science, religion, and philosophy, and it claimed to be written by It claimed to channel celestial beings in his automatic writing. However, Ra says something different. This was transmitted by one of Confederation's social memory complex status, whose idea, as offered to the council, was to use some of the known... Oh, no, it was. There's another one. Never mind. This one was from the Confederation, who was to use some of the known physical history of the so-called religions or religious distortions of your cycle in order to veil and partially unveil aspects of the primal distortions of the law of one. All names can be taken to be created for their vibrational characteristics. The information buried within has to do with a deeper understanding of love and light and the attempts of infinite intelligence through many messengers to learn those entities in your sphere. Okay. So this book was channeled by celestial beings from the Confederation. But as usual, because they can't just come out and tell us everything, and there has to be this law of free will, it sounds like this particular social memory complex being kind of made it real confusing because they veiled and partially unveiled aspects of the law of one. But they used all the names that people were already familiar with throughout the religions, so that people would understand it a little better and probably be more accepting of it. But to me, that just sounds like a confusing jumble of junk. So I don't think that I'll be reading that book anytime soon. However, if anybody has read it, let me know what you think. Or if you feel the call to read it, maybe you can sort through it and report back to us what did you find that relates to this law of one information in this book? But it's good to know that that book has some truths in it. This next one was the one I was thinking of. Okay. Have there been any other books that you can name that were given by the Confederation? We can't share that information because it could screw up your future. Then Don asks about this next book, the Urantia. The Urantia book? Who gave that? This one I didn't bother looking up or I did look it up because I wanted to see what was up with it. But this one was written by disincarnate entities of your own earth plane, so-called inner planes. This material was not passed on by the council. So it was like spirits, human spirits, that decided to work through this person to write a book, but nobody knows who wrote it. It showed up in the first half of the 1900s. Nobody knows who wrote it. It has a lot of information in it that's been completely disproven through science, and so it sounds like, I don't know if these human entities, spirits, were like trying to be helpful and they just got it wrong, or if they were trying to be misleading. And who knows how, through the translation between the spirits and whoever channeled it, what got lost. So then Don asked about Edgar Cayce. Who spoke through Edgar Cayce? Nobody did. I could have answered that question. We have explained before that intelligent infinity is brought into intelligent energy from the 8th density, or octave. The one vibrational sound complex called Edgar used this gateway to view the present, which is not the continuum you experience, but the potential social memory complex of this planetary sphere. Potential social memory complex, which we call the Akashic records, or the Hall of Records. So I know about the Akashic records. I've heard about the Akashic records. I've done some meditation and a class and a workshop, and I feel like I've gone there myself, but I never could really fully understand, like, what the hell is it? I understand that it's a record of all human life, but like why, first of all, and why do we see it as like this specific place with books and stuff in it, like I didn't I never quite understood it, even though I knew it. I knew that it exists, and I've visited it before. But Ra's saying it's the potential social memory complex of Earth. That makes more sense to me. We're saving all the information of all the lives that humans have ever lived, so that should we reach the 4th density and become essentially one being, all of that knowledge, information is accessible. All accessible. So going back to the question, Edgar Cayce. If you do not know who Edgar Cayce is, he was considered the sleeping prophet. He would go to sleep, somebody would ask him a question, and he would answer. And a lot of the things that he did had to do with like medical stuff. Like somebody in Kansas is really sick and they need help, and what will be the thing that helps them? And Edgar Casey would answer in his sleeping state, and he would be able to answer like what pharmacy had the medicine on what shelf and what it was called and what it looked like, and all of this crazy information, kind of like remote viewing. Like he would be able to see a place, a distant place in the present, and tell the person helping him channel the information exactly where something was. But he also did a lot of answering questions about Atlantis and Lemuria, and they would ask him questions about all kinds of stuff while he was in his trance sleep. And there's actually, in Virginia Beach, Virginia, the Edgar Casey Institute. Is it Institute or Center? I can't remember the correct name for it. But it's not that far from me, and I've never been there. I really need to go. But I've read a lot about Edgar Casey. He was probably the first person I got really interested in that had to do with all the woo-woo stuff. Like I found in my local library when I was a teenager, I found a biography that was written about Edgar Casey for like 25 cents. They were like getting rid of it. So in some ways, he might be one of the reasons that I went down this path, because I found that discarded book at the library, and I was already interested in him because I knew who he was. I was just putting all these pieces together, my own personal pieces together. So this session is almost done. Okay. Can you tell me if we are accomplishing our effort reasonably well? There are no mistakes. That's the second time Ra has said that there are no mistakes. I don't know, as humans, if we can understand that or believe it. But I think if you think about it in a way of like, even the things that we think are mistakes, or that we think were awful, or that we think, they're all leading us down a path that we can't quite see yet. And you never know where you're going to end up, where you're going to end up where you wouldn't have ended up if the thing that you thought was a mistake hadn't happened. So I get that. I get it. So anyway, let's sum up what we learned today in session 14. Not a lot of craziness this time, but some really good information. So we learned all the times throughout the 75,000 years of human history that humans attempted to, with or without the aid of others, to move up in density. And those things took place in Lemuria, Egypt, Atlantis, South America. And then we learned about the pyramids and what they were used for. And they started talking about the energy web of the earth. And we also learned what awful lifespans Egyptians had 11,000 years ago. And then we also learned some more about the harvesting for us and for the higher dimensional beings. And then we talked about why Ra feels the need to come help us, because we're a festering wound. Then Dawn asked a bunch of questions about other books and people, and we learned about a little bit about what the Akashic records are. And there are no mistakes. And that's going to conclude today's discussion. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go back and watch all the other ones. This is, if you've come across this one for the first time, this is number 15. So there are 14 more before this one. And I appreciate everybody watching. Please don't forget to join in on the discussion. Add your comments, questions, concerns. If you have some knowledge about the things that I did not have knowledge about today, it would be very beneficial for the collective if you put in what you know. And I'll see you tomorrow with some more information that goes a little more in depth about the stuff we talked about today. And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.